Charter California edition. I'm Pomerance. Glad you're with us because we have Paul Cook, member of the United States Congress. In his first year in office, had spent 6 years in the California State Assembly. How's your new job?
Well, it's a little crazy.
I can imagine.
You know, what's the old saying or curse that sometimes you get what you wish
Right,
for?
be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, and you know, I've been around, obviously, you look at me, local
Marines.
politics,
Right.
college professor, all
Right.
blah, blah, blah. And I'm one of those impatient type of people. I want to get in there, hit the ground running, we're going to get things done, boom, 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 boom. Well, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It is tricky.
It's tricky.
And so there's conditions that polarize the organization. So, and you know, and then I go back, and I'm a political scientist, and I realize, oh yeah, we got 435 people with different opinions, and sometimes it's like herding cats and trying to make a decision.
I do want to ask you, though, you have been honored with being named to the Foreign Affairs Committee.
Yes.
Which is a great assignment for a freshman member.
Oh, it's a great committee.
Right, no doubt. And as a result, or maybe not as a result, but you wound up taking a trip to Israel.
Yes.
Which I can only imagine was quite eye-opening. How was the trip? It was over the summer.
Well, it was fantastic because it wasn't just the fact that I was foreign affairs. I have a subcommittee that covers terrorism, counterterrorism, and the Middle East. You know, you always have some, and I'm on the House Armed Services Committee.
So you really,
so
this was appropriate.
it was, and so I wanted to, you know, get a lay of the land. It's very, very tense. You know, you got Hezbollah, you got Hamas, you got the Muslim Islamic Brotherhood, all the different terrorist organizations, as well as Syria, Iran, and I go on and on and on. It was great to be on the ground there. Quite frankly, I don't know how Israel survives. When you go there, and I know the country, I knew about the Civil War in '48.
Had you been there before?
No, I've never been to
but
Jerusalem, and but in the military.
Well, of course, well, you know it as a professor, as a military man.
And you always had those contingencies where you were going to land in Israel. But I was very, very impressed with the country, with their resiliency while we were there. They were launching missiles from the Sinai terrorists. And of course, Gaza, every few days they launch them, and that Iron Dome system that they have there is incredible. And you got to remember, from the West Bank, one edge of the old West Bank territory to the coast, Mediterranean Sea's 9 miles.
It is unbelievable.
And you say, how? So just being there, and as I said, I've studied this. You never really know everything till you get on the ground, talk to the people. Very impressed. Met with Shimon Peres.
The president of Israel.
Yeah, and he's younger than you. He's 90 years
He's
old.
even younger than you. Or older than you, I should say.
Okay, here you go.
I know, don't get it wrong.
He's 90 years old, and talk about somebody sharp, without a note. And we talked to him for about an hour, and then we met with the Prime Minister for...
Mr. Netanyahu.
Yeah, and I can't go into everything he said.
Of course not.
But he just got a surgery, and here he is banging on the table.
But were you impressed?
I was very impressed because of the fire in the belly. You know, we're always going to have differences on policy and what have you. But these people live under the gun. And
literally. Literally.
Right. And, you know, the settlement issues, and we covered some of that, and it was just a great, great visit.
I'm glad to hear
and
that.
So
you mentioned the military, and I want to talk to you about your continued commitment to veterans. That is, you were the chairman of the Veterans Committee in the Assembly when you were in Sacramento. You continue to work for veterans. You have a bill marching forward. It deals with, this is interesting, it deals with amputees.
Yeah.
It's not just veterans, is that right? But unfortunately, veterans are often
Well, part of it is you don't have common denominators or common standards that you have at one screening point as opposed. And sometimes, you know, the way they handle certain people, in this case,
and you're talking about when you go to the airport and you go through TSA.
That's right, and going through that. And we're just trying to standardize the conditions. And quite frankly, I think if the people who have a disability know what they are, I think they're more prepared because they get embarrassed. And I think, obviously, I'm very sensitive to those who might have lost a limb in Iraq or Afghanistan or even Vietnam, going all the way back. So I do want a standard all the way through there, publicize that, and I think it makes it a lot easier for everybody that they know what's going to happen when you're coming there. It's a simple bill, but surprisingly enough, a lot of people are supporting it. So
good to hear.
I think it's going to pass.
It's marching forward.
Yeah, yes, it is. And, you know, we work in, on that committee and the subcommittees, and I've got some issues with the backlog, the number of people. We're
Are
trying
you
to
talking about Veterans Affairs?
the Veterans Affairs.
So now we're on to another issue.
I'm moving fast
Right,
because
you're
I know
moving
you're going
fast.
to cut
You're
me
allowed.
off and go on
no,
to some.
but this is frustrating because our veterans come home and they need to access services, and the backlog at the Veterans Administration is traumatic.
And it is. And, you know, sometimes I get revved up because I'm a veteran and I know it.
understand.
And so I want the VA to be more responsive. And I know they're overwhelmed and everything like that, but I'm sorry. You got to take care of the troops. You got to take care of the ones who've been wounded. And sometimes they go there and, you know, I ask questions about why can't you have telemedicine? Why do we have to load up and they drive 6-7 hours and then no one sees them? And is there a priority for certain things based upon certain, and one of them, quite frankly, is age. One of them is very, very serious. And
Right.
I think you have to have a triage system, just like where you go into any
And that's what your bill says. And you're
Absolutely.
working with, I know, Congressman Runyon on that very issue.
We are, and we got, I think there's a number of Dems that are on board.
Okay.
It's bipartisan, and they feel the same way. And
Do you have similar bills running in the Senate? Or do you need that?
well, the bill I have running in the Senate right now is ironically one about off-roaders, which is kind of
Let's go there. Let's talk about off-roaders in the Johnson Valley.
Johnson Valley.
Which is where, for our viewers who are
It's in
watching-
San Bernardino County. It's
Okay.
off of 247 in the high desert,
Mm-hmm.
and it's in basically Landers in an area known as Johnson Valley. It's adjacent to the largest Marine Corps base in the world,
Called?
the Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center, 952 square miles, 3/4 the size of Rhode Island. In case you asked me that.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, my memory is not as good as it used to be. Anyway, the issue is about the expansion of the Marine Corps base. And don't forget, I am a Marine. Take a bullet for the Marines. I'm a
Semper
Marine.
Fi.
But I have an issue with that, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that this is an established off-road recreational vehicle. It's grown, and the population there, and to expand in that direction, I have serious reservations.
So what your bill would say is that
I am going to make it a federal area there for off-road vehicles. This area that is not part of the Marine Corps, but the one adjacent. Of course, they're not very happy with that.
I was going
right?
to say, how could a Marine do such a thing?
Well, because I don't think they need it. And I'm very
see.
candid. The Marine Corps is going to be downsized, the end strength, everything like that, and this expense rate. And it's always been a boundary that's been very porous. And I'm always worried about civilian incursions. And my biggest fear, and I've told the Marine Corps this, is that you have an off-road vehicle with a family, and you drop a bomb or they hit a dud. And I set the Marine Pack 20.
Have you spoken with Senator Feinstein? Is she involved in this? from
She wants to
California?
meet with me.
Okay.
She,
Or Senator Boxer, for that matter. But I understand
well,
Senator
Senator
Feinstein.
Feinstein and I will probably be getting, it passed the House.
It did.
Buck McKeon, who's the chair of the House Armed Services, is co-sponsor. We got through, and then the opposition from the Marine Corps really heated up when
How
it's going.
interesting.
So they figure they can kill it in the Senate.
So what does Senator Feinstein think? We don't
Well,
know. She's not here.
you know, she would have. I know she wants to talk to me about some of her environmental issues,
Right.
which are all tied in.
And you have a relationship with her.
I do. Her staff has been great, and we're working together with a water project. And you know, the Marine Corps is very, very close with her because I think they want an environmental buffer zone there.
And his name is Paul Cook. He's a member of the United States Congress. He represents, should we call it Southeastern California?
Close enough. Don't forget, but I go
You do
all the
go
way
off
up
Central-
to
that's
almost town.
Okay,
So,
I'm Brad Pomerance. It's Charter California Edition.
thank you.
How many off-highway vehicle areas does the U.S. Bureau of Land Management operate in California? 9, 15, 21, or 27? The U.S. Department of Interior's Bureau of Land Management operates 15 OHV areas in the state of California.
It's California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance, and we are joined by Kurt Madden. He is the superintendent of the Bear Valley Unified School District, and like so many school districts in California and the nation, frankly, you are getting ready for what's known as a Common Core standard adoption. What is Common Core?
Common Core, I think it's a vision that we're trying to really get all students career and college ready.
But how does it change the way California students will learn vis-a-vis what they're used to today?
You know, Brad, it really comes down to delivery. It's the delivery and the instructional strategies that all teachers are going to have to implement. It's more inquiry-based, open-ended questions, really serving the role as a facilitator and really engage problem-based learning as compared to teaching content, and test-taking skills, which I think were some of the criticisms with No Child Left Behind.
It seems to me that if a child is entering school or the first few years of school, that they'll be okay with this transition. There's kids that are in high school probably too late to handle this transition, and they'll kind of move on. It's the kids in the middle that I think are really kind of in ground zero of this transition. Kids my age, you know, I mean, basically, or the age of my children, I should say.
Correct.
So how do you handle that transition?
Well, what we have to do is we have to really provide professional development to teach our teachers to say it's okay to let go. What's beautiful now is with the internet, it really forces the resources that are out there. It's learning online. It's teaching students how to learn. And I think the days of running to school and sitting there in perfectly straight rows with that textbook is really, really shifted. Because empowering students when there's things in the cloud and students in 3rd and 4th grade understand that, it's just amazing what they're going to come up with. So it's engaging reading, writing, speaking every lesson, every day, flipping classes, meaning having kids watch videos, coming into class, and the teacher serves in the role as a facilitator. And that's just really, really nice for everyone.
We've also heard that with Common Core, the desire is to dig deeper into topics that are covered, really peel the onion, as they say. That's a plus, one could argue. The minus is, as I understand it, some topics will be squeezed out. We won't see as much emphasis on classic literature or on fiction. Some of the math concepts may be pushed aside. Is that a concern of yours?
Not really, because I think as we look at content or content standards, what we have to do professionally is select what we're going to call the power standards. If we have 20 different standards in language arts or mathematics, we've got to be able to pull down with our experts in those content areas 7 to 8, and what we'll do at that point is leverage them. So we're going to cover less material, but we're going to go much deeper, and I think for, again, our viewers, go back to Bloom's taxonomy. Analysis, synthesis, and evaluation are going to be real key in the application of what you're learning as compared to simple retention knowledge and more factoids.
Are we ready? Is California ready?
We're ready for the first step, and I think we need to be patient because over time it's going to get better and better. My personal belief, it's going to be a 3 to 5 year shot, but it's almost like a renaissance.
But what happens for the kids that are in school right now over those 3 to 5 years? Do they get kind of caught in the crossfire?
They might be, but I think it depends upon the culture of the classroom, the culture of the school, and the culture of the district. I know in Bear Valley we're small, but teachers are excited because we want to give them that support. Our Board of Education says, hey, this is our experimental year. The main thing is take that first step. Once we gain some traction and share our good days, our bad days, and our celebrations.
But I understand, and I ask this of many, but an experimental year, that's a little scary for a parent. You know, what if your kid's in the 6th or 7th grade? I mean, that's a key year and you're experimenting. How do you make sure that that year isn't lost?
Well, I think in all professions, if it's medicine, if it's law, if anything, there's always beta tests and experiments that are happening. I think we always keep the best interests of students front and foremost. And again, it's teaching students how to learn and teaching curiosity, critical thinking, collaboration. That's going to be real key. That's lifelong. Even if you're not going to go to a UC school, if you're going to go into a career, that's what all of us want.
As you know, in November 2012, Proposition 39 passed, and Proposition 39 provided funding for energy efficiency programs, especially for schools.
Correct.
I understand Bear Valley is taking advantage of some of that?
That is affirmed.
Okay, so please tell us all about what you're doing.
Well, we want the best energy efficient program in the nation. We really boast, we have 300 days of sunshine. and that's super. So we have a two-phase process.
In the middle of the cold?
In the middle of the cold.
Yeah, I
It's
love that
it's-
about Big Bear.
It's great,
Right.
and we're a place that our electricity is about 30 cents per kilowatt hour. It's much more
that high?
expensive. That's
That's high.
extremely high.
Okay.
And it's going up 3 cents a year. So we've actually implemented a reduced phase that we've retrofitted all of our lights, heating, ventilation, air conditioning to go more efficient. And now it's a produced phase where we're going to have solar panels throughout our district, and we're now going to compress natural gas with our buses. So we're just going to break the ground on a fueling station, which is dynamite, because buses, instead of paying $4 a gallon, with our compressed natural gas, different fuel source, is going to be $2 a gallon.
You know what I love about solar is that in a lot of ways, the solar project on the school campus becomes a learning tool. I have been to campuses where there's solar on the roofs, and those campuses have integrated that solar energy placement into their curricula.
Well, what's popular now, and we've started an academy at our middle school, it's called STEM, your science, your
Sure, of
technology,
course.
your engineering, and math. And our students will be able to actually do project-based learning relative to how much energy we're producing, how much we've reduced, and really develop some action research. So we're very excited about that.
What made Bear Valley decide that they wanted to take advantage of Prop 39 and really make this a priority? Because you're so busy. I mean, with Common Core, you got a lot going on. My friend.
I want to give a shout out to our Board of Education. They're extremely progressive, and they really want to be on the front end of everything. And we want to be a destination district, a place that has really gone green. At the same time, what doesn't hurt is the city of Big Bear Lake, they're doing the exact same thing. So now we're penetrating, and we've got some good things going on.
So school has started.
School has started.
How is it going? I mean, I know that coming back can be challenging. Students' brains can rot over the summer, and I use that term very specifically. How is it?
It's gone very well. We started on August the 1st. It's nice.
That's really early.
Yeah, we don't have.
Why is
it's a little bit cooler up there?
Are you year round? Or?
Almost year round. We have
see.
2 weeks off in the fall and 3 weeks off for winter break, so that makes it nice. So we're almost in a year-round schedule, but we're off to a great start. My job is to really get out there and really engage with students, with parents, with staff members, and our Board of Education, again, is very excited about our start this year. So we started a virtual academy,
Wow.
and that's really online learning where students are learning online. We're very excited about that.
I have to ask about you and what did you do this summer?
Well,
because I know what you did this summer, and I don't know what to say other than I'm not worthy.
Well, no, Brad, you are.
Tell me about your summer.
Yeah, I'm very ambitious, and I
Yes.
embrace, I have a real passion for exercise. So back in mid-July, I went to Telluride, and I did an event there called the Hard Rock 100. And that means that 144 brave souls had an opportunity to embrace 34,000 vertical feet of climbing mountains and descending. And it was a figure-8 course all through the San Juan Mountains. And Brad, I want to tell you, I never realized how enjoyable and gratifying it could be. And for our viewers, it took me 39 hours and 58 minutes nonstop. And
Nonstop?
Nonstop.
No sleeping.
No sleeping.
Drinking?
Drinking and maybe a few potty breaks.
Right.
But I told you before
Right.
the show, I figured it out. I actually burned 26,000 calories. And since that wasn't enough, I came back just 2 weeks ago, which a gap
Right.
of 5 weeks, and I went back to Leadville, Colorado, starting at 10,000 feet. 1,200 people in the event from 42 states, 10 different nations, and out of 1,200 people, I was 58th overall. Improved my time a year ago by 3 hours and 22 minutes. I went 23 hours and 15 minutes.
How do you train for something like that?
Very carefully.
Yes.
A lot of
No, but
elevation.
honest.
Well, no, it's a daily routine. I actually slept in an altitude tent. I do a lot of things just to prepare myself. San Gorgonio is a peak nearby.
Right.
I did some double and triple ascents of that on the weekend during the night.
Which means?
That means up and down, up and
right.
down. So I would go 60 miles climbing 12,000 vertical feet. That people thought I was a little bit off,
Right.
but that's okay.
Do your students know?
They do know.
They should.
And they're excited.
They should
and they
know.
just cannot believe that I would do something. But it keeps you at peace with yourself. And I think learning about grit, determination, resolve, you take that back and you're good to go.
He's Kurt Madden. I'm Brad Pomerance. This is Charter California Edition.
Which state has only adopted the Common Core standards for English language arts? Minnesota, New Hampshire, Texas, or Virginia? Minnesota has only adopted the Common Core state standards for English language arts.
It's Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance, and we are joined by Henry Lowe. He is the vice president of the Garvey School District. You've been on the board for 10 years, so you have seen good times and bad times. The question is, what kind of times are we in right now?
I think right now we are in a holding pattern.
Okay, that's a fair answer. That's a fair answer.
Yes, I have been on the board for 10 years,
Right.
and when I talk to people about that decade,
Right.
I've certainly seen a good time, especially my first term,
Right.
in which we worked to raise the profile of the school district and build community support for our schools, and certainly bad times in the last 4 or 5 years with the state recession,
Right.
the steep budget, and now I think we have some breathing room.
Do we though? Because when Proposition 30 passed, I think there was a general view that it was going to infuse more money into the school districts. Now, that's a true statement, but it's not a complete, or is it a complete restoration to pre-recession levels?
I don't believe so. I think
Right.
that it stopped further bleeding
Right.
for public education, and it's allowed many school districts to look at how they locally can
Right.
restore some of the funding that's lost.
And you talk about local funding. We know absolutely that as a result of a major overhaul of the funding formula for K-12, that local districts will have more control. The local control funding formula, it really all but gets rid of categoricals, and you have a lot of leeway in how you can spend the money given to you by the state.
That's true, and that's not true. Yes, there is more local control for local education agencies, but actually there are still guidelines in which
Yes.
districts must follow. In fact, at our last board meeting, we were discussing about what those guidelines are going to look like as the state continues to flesh them out.
But without the categoricals, though. I mean, you had over 40, 50 mandates. Now I think it's under 10.
Right.
Does that change the way you're able to prioritize?
I think so. I think so. And actually, I understand why the categories existed in the first place,
Yes.
to ensure that certain priorities, like arts, education, are
Right.
in there. And I think that for school boards, certainly it does mean that we're more accountable to the public.
Right. At the same time, as part of the local control funding formula, those school districts that educate English language learners,
Yes.
that educate economically disadvantaged, as well as foster kids, will see additional funding coming versus their counterparts who don't have high numbers. I know Garvey has very high numbers in those categories.
Yes, the majority of our students are English language learners, as well as lower socioeconomics,
Right.
and so they certainly are largely beneficiaries of
Right.
the LCFF, and we're very excited about this new era in California education funding, and I think it's an allocation of resources for those who need it the most.
There's no question, I think it's undeniable. Experts on both sides would agree that English language learners, economically disadvantaged, they do need a little more attention. That often comes in the form of additional funding, which provides additional resources. But under this formula, you're going to see a huge spike in funding. I mean, arguably 70% above your counterparts, 50 to 70%. Do you think that's too much? I mean, why would you say no? But, I mean, is there an argument that we may have swung too far the other way?
I think during the debate for the LCFF, I've heard comments from those school districts who would be adversely affected. And I understand where they're coming from, because going back to your earlier comment about that baseline funding for
Right.
pre-recession levels, I think most affluent school districts would say, look, we agree, we think there should be more resources allocated to English language learner students and low-income students. But I think the issue of fairness, they ask, well, but restore us to where we used to be
Right.
before.
And it appears that they have. Is that fair? I mean, the jury's still out, but it appears that there is a restoration to pre-recession levels.
I think there certainly will be a restoration, at least certainly that we will not go below the baseline of, I believe, 2011, 2012 fiscal year. And I think that time will tell,
Right.
as we move towards full implementation by fiscal year 2015, 2016.
Right. And speaking of 2015, 2016, either that year or maybe even the year before, California will be, again, revolutionizing the way it educates. In addition to local control funding formula, we have adopted what's known as the Common Core standards.
Yes.
and that has been adopted by 45, even maybe even more states.
Yeah.
Common Core changes the way that we educate. Is California ready?
I think that we're getting there. I know at my school district at Garvey, we've been working on being ready for past 3 years. We've first started with language arts and then moving on to math. And I think by next year we are ready for full implementation. But certainly it's been a challenge for all school districts in California to meet those standards and expectations for a new way of teaching.
And as I understand it, one of the main attempts in terms of Common Core is to, instead of teaching multiple topics in a very rapid fashion, it's dig deeper
Yes.
into fewer topics.
Yes.
I understand, but could one argue that some topics are going to be ignored to the detriment of students?
I don't believe so, because I also believe that with Common Core, it's also looking at how do we integrate multiple subjects as we look at
Right.
Teaching in a different way that's I think more project oriented. And I believe that technology is actually going to play a key role.
And I do want to talk about technology because there's no doubt that the schools of today are very different than when we went to school.
Oh, absolutely,
and
yes.
So, I mean, it may be that we don't even have textbooks anymore, that kids are receiving their books on iPads or Kindles or whatever it may be. I guess you could argue there's some money savings there. You don't have to do the printing of the books, but you know, the initial investment for those iPads, Kindles can be steep. Are school districts ready to adopt the technology necessary for Common Core to be the most successful that it can be?
I think it's also a work in progress. I mean, certainly there are questions about affordability and funding, but if you look at some of the textbooks that school districts are compelled to order, they're pretty expensive themselves.
No, there's no doubt.
And laptops are, I mean, especially with the reduction in cost over the years of the market. At Garvey, actually, our 7th and 8th graders, all of them will be getting laptops.
It's amazing.
And our goal is to keep going one grade down, and so that eventually, from elementary to middle school, all our students have laptops.
You mentioned your 7th and 8th graders, and I wonder if those are the kids that will find it most difficult to adjust to Common Core. You know, if a kid's in elementary school, they can ramp up. If a kid's in high school, probably too late. But, you know, with 6th, 7th, 8th graders, I mean, it's really a sea change in how they're going to be educated.
Right.
How do you work with those kids to kind of ease them into this new way of learning and thinking and educating and being?
Well, I think that, you know, middle school really is.
It's terrible to start.
Well,
it's a tough time as it is.
For anyone, because yeah, I mean that transition from elementary to high school. But I think that is an ample time to use middle school to help those students get acclimated to the new to new way of teaching, you know, through Common Core, and for us, because we're an elementary district, we work very closely with our sister school district, which is the Alhambra School District, so that when our students matriculate, this transition is smooth.
Right.
You know?
And you're a K-8.
Yes, K-8.
So I do want to ask though about your high school district. I know that's a separate question, but right now we're transferring to Common Core, but are the SATs transferring to Common Core? Are the ACTs transferring to Common Core? Because those exams really are very traditional, very focusing on the drill and kill. And so are you aware if all levels of education are focusing on this new way of thinking?
You know, that's a good question.
Right.
And
you don't have to worry about it because you're K-8, but you know.
No, you raise a really good point, and I think that's something for our school district we should be acutely aware of, because as you said, we're not a high school district, but because we really in some ways play such an important role of the foundation, that I think we need to make sure that as we implement Common Core that it is a seamless transition in all aspects, from elementary to high school to college. I
really wonder if the College Board is getting on board on this question, because I haven't heard much about it.
You know, that's a really interesting.
Sometimes I come up with smart viewpoints. You never know. His name is Henry Lowe with the Garvey School District. I'm Brad Pomerance, and this is California Edition.